Unbelievable stuff. Gervonta Davis is now being blamed for brainwashing boxing fans by being a knockout artist. Yo, what is really good, bro? Man, listen, boxing is becoming an acquired taste. Not the sport itself, but there's a lot of narrative pushing in this sport right now. A lot of various agendas. If you're an artist and you want to remain an artist, don't want to have to worry about the executive producer all in the video, then come to Boxing Ego. Because it's getting to a point where you got to be very careful in these boxing streets about who you listen to, who you go to for boxing opinions, this, that, and the third. Now, Shakur Stevenson just beat Artem Harutyunyan. He won convincingly. A lot of people still were left with the sour taste. They just find Shakur's style to be a bit boring. This has sparked controversy, and fighters like Marcus Brown, Ishe Smith, rappers like Cameron, Killer, and Mace, they've all like exchanged words. Shakur, he's trying to hold his ground and, cuss them out. They're mentioning how Shakur's style is boring, put him to sleep, different things like that. I'm not going to get into each individual beef. Now, there's a brand new interview that Shakur Stevenson did with Cigar Talk, and he sat down and he said something which has prompted me to make this video, because I see other people are pushing the same narrative, right? It's not just Shakur. But what Shakur said in this interview is, and I'm just paraphrasing, basically, he's saying that Gervonta Davis being a cold-blooded killer and knockout artist has influenced the crowd and the fans and changed the perception of his fights. Meaning the reason why people are quote unquote dissatisfied or calling him a runner or boring is because he has a guy in his division like Gervonta Davis. Now, again, I've seen other people stating that. What is happening in the sport of boxing? That is completely and utterly ridiculous. And I'm going to explain why. For starters, boxing's been around for centuries. Beyond that, some people are naturally gifted when it comes to the power department, right? The world has seen the Deontay, the Bronze Bomber Wilder, oh my God, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to this day, right? You got the Wilders, you got the, hi, it's me, Mike Tyson. I'm not a textbook fighter. I fight to win, totally to win, right? Mike Tyson, Ernie Shavers. You got the Hawk, Julian Jackson, right? And the list goes on and on of these incredulous punchers. Now, Gervonta Davis, in today's society, today's sport, you got Naoya Inoue, got a lot of power. Artur Beterbiev, right? Joshua's a considerable puncher, etc. He flattened Francis Ngannou. So this is nothing new under the sun. Gervonta Davis has joined the ranks of many other prominent boxers who've had power. Guys like Marcos Maidana, revered for his power, Ruslan Provodnikov. The difference with Tank is the way he delivers his power. Unlike a Maidana, definitely unlike a Ruslan Provodnikov, because he has the ability to box, which is what I've been saying for years. A lot of people miscategorize Gervonta Davis as if he was like this mindless brawler who is losing all his fights and down on the scorecards and then just turns it all around. Those people don't know about boxing. Gervonta Davis is setting traps. Gervonta Davis is not relying solely on power, because you look at his fight with Isaac Pitbull Cruz, he didn't even have access to both of his hands because clearly he had a hand injury sustained in the fight and he had to think on his toes, and he still found a way to get it done. That's why I tell you guys, I love fights like that, and I love that fight for Gervonta Davis, because for me, when I seen him get it done in a different fashion, that just showed me how much of a beast he truly is, because we already knew he had power, but when you got it done in a completely different way, that showed me something about your temperament. You have different wrinkles to your game. So to have Shakur Stevenson, I've already given you a brief history lesson on, some of the most important punchers in boxing history. For him to make it sound like people are brainwashed. I mean, so Tyson, his reign was really late 80s, early 90s. So what about other people that were heavyweights that didn't crack exactly like Mike Tyson, right? Or any of these other divisions. So for me, I find that to be a cop-out. People are complaining about Shakur Stevenson's style particularly. So he's looking for almost like a scapegoat to explain, you know, what the phenomenon is and why people are booing. But there's other guys who didn't have the most power, but they weren't in fights that were being called boring fights. Like Tim Bradley. Tim Bradley is not a big puncher. And he's been in fights with Pacquiao, a trilogy. Nobody really said those were boring fights. His fight with Diego Chavez, Devin Alexander, Tim Bradley versus Ruslan Provodnikov was pretty much a fight of the year. So this is not, people keep saying like, oh, what do you expect? Not everyone's a born puncher. No, that's common sense. Not everyone's a big puncher. But Kenneth Sims has a 35% knockout ratio, which is not high. It's below average because 50% would be average. And he's in exciting fights. So it's not just about punching power. It's a mentality. It's a stylistic choice. And Shakur fights how he fights. And it looks like he's trying to, you know, almost, and some of his fans, the man fans, they're trying to paint all these narratives to bring other people into the equation. And again, Kenneth Sims, he's a guy, a perfect example of a current fighter, doesn't have the most power, but yet he has a fun style to watch. You know, it's not about just getting a knockdown or knockout. It's how you're delivering, how, you know, because Floyd Mayweather, he was fighting bigger guys later in his career, in the Money Mayweather stage of his career. So with that being said, some of the bigger guys, he wasn't able to stop them because he was really fighting at a weight class where all the guys were bigger, or some of them even started higher than him. And Floyd moved up 5 divisions. So to say that Gervonta Davis has brainwashed the fans, that's an excuse. That's a cop-out. Gervonta Davis, just like many of the greats that I've mentioned, the Shavers and other fighters that have power, right? That's just their bag. How is that? That really has no bearing on you. You had a heavyweight division with Lennox Lewis and Tommy Morrison and Ray Mercer, but then you also had Chris Bird, and he didn't have the most power, but he had a successful career, right? So there's other boxers that weren't big punchers, and people didn't really complain about their fights as much, or they were still in big fights like Winky Wright and things like that, right? So I reject your deposit. I think that, like I keep saying, it's a cop-out to say that. And the other thing is, what do you suggest? So Gervonta Davis needs to turn off his power? That's like telling Barry Bonds, hey, stop getting home runs that excite the crowd. Stop getting home runs so people can be satisfied and appreciate my base hits. It's just not going to happen. If Barry Bonds has the ability to crack it out the park and, you know, hit the papers, because not everyone can hit home runs like Barry Bonds, right? So if he has this ability, then he's going to do it. Nobody's going to turn it off for you or feel sympathetic or fight differently because it doesn't benefit you. So a lot of what Shakur Stevenson, to me, is saying recently, he would be better off just going on vacation and spending time with his family, because it sounds a bit weird. You know, saying stuff about Gervonta Davis he's changed the perception. First, people said Floyd Mayweather, people try to protect their O's, and Floyd, it's his fault. Now you have this new generation, and they're saying that Gervonta Davis's style has influenced how Shakur's fights are perceived. And that's just goofy, because there's other people like David Benavidez. He fought a bigger vault stick. He couldn't knock him out in a new weight class, but nobody complained about his fight and called it boring. And he was on the same card as Gervonta Davis. So Shakur Stevenson is making excuses for his style and making it sound like everybody has to suffer because Gervonta Davis is getting these crazy knockouts, and then now people don't appreciate boxing. It's not the truth, because this has always been the dynamic in boxing. You have some mid power guys, You got some guys who have a lot, like over the top power, and then you have other guys who aren't punchers. Shakur, I notice what he likes to do is when confronted with a complaint on him specifically, he started name dropping. Oh, but Muhammad Ali took losses. Oh, but Floyd Mayweather, you know, people called him boring. Bro, Floyd is retired. Muhammad Ali is no longer here. This is not about anybody else but you. You fought Artem. You got the victory. Congratulations. People felt how they felt, and it is what it is. You move on. If you love how you performed and you want to keep doing it, and that's how you fight, God bless you. Merry Christmas. But Shakur, he seems like he's in denial, and he has to find some kind of way to make it make sense. So now he's fashioned in his head that, oh yeah, Gervonta Davis has brainwashed fans with his knockouts. Bro, it doesn't have. So you think Tank Davis has, and it's funny because people won't admit that Tank is the face of boxing, but then they'll make a statement like that. So Gervonta Davis has so much influence on the game that because he's getting knockouts, now fans can't appreciate anything that's not a knockout. I mean, it's not true, because I'm a boxing fan and I make it not true because that's not how I feel. I have no problem with pure boxers. But when you and Edwin De Los Santos combined for a career low amount of punches ever thrown, yeah, people don't like that specific fight. It's just what it is. I mean, and then you have people who are trying to come up with all these intense and different reasons and rationales of why Shakur's getting criticism. Some people are saying, oh, it's because he's black. Bro, it has nothing to do with him being black for most people. I'm not saying there's not a couple goofy, ignorant racists that feel that way, but it's like you're not going to use the black card on that. It's like Spike Lee. Because he's black and you support black-owned business, no, not a problem. That's amazing. I do too. But here's the thing. He's a director. If he puts out a movie and it's trash and it's not like Malcolm X, which is a masterpiece, then people are going to give the movie review. You can't just revert and say, oh, it's because Spike Lee's black. If Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese or Ridley Scott, somebody who's not black, puts out a better movie, then they put out a better movie. Like Gladiator is a beast of a movie. And I'm sure Gladiator, Ridley Scott, his movie is better than a particular Spike Lee movie. Doesn't mean Spike Lee's not a good director. It just means people weren't necessarily feeling that particular movie. You're not going to be able to weaponize pro-black in that way. And then there's many people of all walks of life who are saying they're not really feeling Shakur's output and his style of fight. So you're not going to just relegate that to, oh, it's just haters and black and people hating because he's black. I mean, stop it. And then this whole nonsense about, oh, Gervonta has changed the game and now people can't appreciate. Bro, a good fight is a good fight. David Benavidez and Caleb Plant was a good fight. They didn't knock. I don't think there was any knockdowns. If I'm not, you guys correct me in the comment section. There was no knockout. I know that. But I don't even think there was a knockdown. Caleb Plant was hurt, but it was a good fight. It was on my birthday, March 25th. Look it up. Caleb Plant versus Benavidez was a great fight. No knockdowns and no knockouts. Same with Shakur and Artem. No knockouts, no knockdowns. Different tempo of fights. Styles make fights, and it's a mentality. Caleb Plant, you know, some people question his power in stages of his career, but he's always down to fight. So he was doing some good work, jabbing, and you know, he can hit the switch like he did with Anthony Durrell. Later in the fight, David Benavidez was closing the gap. Caleb Plant faded a bit. So good fight. Shakur Artem just wasn't the greatest fight. It happens. So I just feel like Shakur is doing a lot of explaining and justification, and you can't blame Tank. He fights how he fights. You fight how you fight. It shouldn't have anything to do with you. Punchers have always existed in the sport of boxing.